Hey, I'm Natalie Potts, and this is the Natalie Potts podcast. If you want to talk about your business, your life, your health, and more, then you are in the right place. We do it all with humour, love, and inspiration to help you create a life you love. So, let's dive in. Laura, thank you so much for joining me today. It's a pleasure to have you on, and I know it's going to be an incredible episode of what we've already spoken about before and everything that we do with business and lots of leadership, and I know there's going to be lots of useful takeaways for people. So let's kick off by introducing who we are, and most people know me and my listeners, but share everybody a little bit about Laura.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you very much for having me on as well. I'm really looking forward to this. But yeah, as you said, my name's Laura Parr. I am a business coach and strategist. I started off my personal journey in the world of property. Well, even before that, I was corporate, and that really wasn't my thing. I loved property and I did about 10 years in that. However, there's lots of different facets to property, and I ended up getting into one that I didn't really enjoy. So by the end of the 10 years, I hated everything that I was doing. It really didn't sort of fill me with joy at all. So that led me to asking all of the usual questions about, life. What is it that we're doing with it? What do I want from it? And that's what led me to coaching. I'd already been coaching a little bit, anyway, but I got I went down the route of, getting coaching qualifications and, actually doing it properly and professionally. And so I now run a business called Conscious Business Design. And what I do is I help women to start what I call conscious businesses. There's two sort of definitions to that. So the first one being a business that actually consciously does something, beyond just making money. So it's about giving back environmentally, or it's about, giving back economically or socially, and you don't need to wait until you've got money to do those kind of things, because that's the misconception. Is, everyone wants to be philanthropic and they go, yeah, if I had a spare million, of course I would. But you don't need that spare million. You can actually do that without any money. And it's just how you set your business up, the systems and processes you put in place. Maybe it's who you hire, the suppliers you use, all those sorts of different things. So it's encouraging people to be conscious about the business that they're creating, but it's also about being conscious about how you're setting it up as well, because the business failure rates are just astronomical. It's well above 50% in the first 5 years. And for me personally, I believe that a lot of that is because we jump into starting a business without actually really questioning what we're doing. We think we have a brilliant idea, or we hear something amazing about entrepreneurship and freedom, and you hear all these people online at the minute that they're like, oh, I've got my own business and so I only work 3 hours a week, and we kind of go, great, I'll do the same. And nobody really asks the questions about, well, does this fit with my lifestyle? Is this giving me what I want? And the amount of times I've sort of worked with people and they've had a look at things and gone, oh, so that doesn't allow me to retire at 35. And you go, well, no, but if we did it this way, then maybe we could incorporate, X, Y, and Z. So it's about being conscious from the very, very start, so that you don't get despondent, a few months down the line or a few years down the line, thinking, how did I get here? So that, in a slightly long nutshell, is what I do.
There's loads in that. Thank you for sharing. And where we will have the synergy is our involvement around strategy, for sure. And like you say, I guess essentially one of the things I say quite a lot is slowing down, speed up, and looking at, like we shared there, what is the strategy? What is the reason you got into it? Why is it important to you? What does it actually look like? It's a question I get. My other half challenging it quite a lot. Is that you're always like, what does it look like? And I was like, but it's true, because we don't, or we'll say these questions kind of just willy-nilly out there, but we don't actually think about what they mean to us in our business to, exactly like you say, create something sustainable for the future. And there is so many businesses that just fold so soon, they give up too early because they haven't done that groundwork. And what I took from what you were sharing there as well is this idea that we're always searching for the end goal, the next thing. When I get there, and it's like, but you got to really think, you've got to have that strong vision, but think about what is it now, step by step, and immerse yourself in that, get the support for that. And like you say, map out that sometimes we 10 times in our head than it's more than it needs to be. But other sides, we also do need an idea of where we're going, what we're doing, and being able to have the strategy to implement.
Yeah, well, some people, they say, oh, I want freedom. And you go, oh, that's great. What is freedom? For one person, freedom might be traveling around the world 24/7. But for other people, freedom might be, I want to pick up my kids at 3:30 when they finish school. So unless you define what that means to you, you're comparing apples with oranges. And that's the problem with comparing yourself to somebody online, is that, you know, someone online sort of says, oh, this is what I'm doing and I have freedom. And we conjure that up to mean, you know, what we want it to mean, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's exactly what we want. And that's an interesting exercise to go through. And I've done that with a lot of clients, you know, is trying to define what I call your rich life. It's, you know, what would you be doing if there were, you know, money was no object, but also people's opinions were no object as well. Like, that's the other thing, is that people kind of go, oh, I want to retire at 60 instead of 65. And you kind of go, okay, well, what about 45? And they go, oh, and they pick 60 because they think it's early, because societal norms suggest that you're meant to be retiring at 65. So actually 60 is pretty good. So you've got to be careful how you sort of assess what it is that you want. And you have to double check. Am I wanting this because it would be good for my family, or because it would be great to be able to tell people that, you know, this is what I do? Or do I want it because I actually genuinely want it? So you've got to be a little bit conscious about, you know, even the answers to your questions sometimes.
What is that you call it again? Remind me.
Your rich life. I do an exercise called rich life, basically, and I get my clients to sort of sit down and literally describe, and you have the sort of key to this, I guess, is going into as much detail as possible. What does your rich life look like? And that literally can mean, you know, when you wake up in the morning, where are you waking up? What time are you waking up? Because these kind of give you ideas as to, you know, where is it that you're staying? What does the house look like? What does the room look like? Are you on holiday or are you at home? Is someone waking up with you? Who's next to you in the bed? Or is nobody next to you in the bed? Is someone bringing you a coffee, or are you going to make your own coffee? You know, what kind of coffee? Are you getting to work? In which case, what car are you getting to? Are you driving? Is somebody else driving? Do you know what I mean? These are very, very, very specific questions. But the point is that if your answer to, you know, my question of, are you driving or is someone else driving? And you go, oh yeah, someone else is driving. You go, okay. So is part of your rich life having a PA or somebody to drive you places because you hate driving? And that's the thing, is that some people might kind of go, oh no, that's too extravagant. I can't do that. I can't do that. But I mean, on my rich life, for example, I personally would love somebody to cook Monday to Friday. I love cooking, but I love it for the excitement of it. So I would like to do it, you know, when you can sort of enjoy it. But during the week, it's more of a sort of a chore. We need to get it done. I've got to feed my daughter because she's 3.5 before she goes to bed. So it's more like, oh, what can I do within the time frame? And it leaves me to enjoy making food at the weekend. Now, a lot of people have said to me, you know, oh, la-di-da, you want somebody to cook for you during the week. And I'm kind of thinking, actually, yeah, because that gives me an extra hour back every single day that I can do, you know, I can spend with my daughter, or I can spend working on my business, you know, and I don't have to think about those things. And I'm unapologetic about that. That's, you know, that's what I would love. I don't have that right now, but, you know, if I were to get to that stage, that's in my rich life.
Yeah. And I think I say success on your terms, because I think, like, you're echoing there that there's so many expectations on us in society, and we've got to show up in a certain way, even from the point of the days we work in the week. It's just a society's norm of what you work. And I guess I have quite an issue with that at points, because we feel then boxed in something, and we feel that we can lead ourselves instantly to disappointment in things, or we're not where we need to be, or the self-doubts and the criticism that we have. I was reading something last night. I said again, and I know this stat anyway, that 80% of our thoughts in a day are negative. It's natural default to be that way. So exactly like you shared there about freedom, well, what does it mean to you? And an interesting exercise I've been through the last few months with my mindset coach is looking at this idea of, what does freedom, you know, freedom is right now in here. I've got that right now. It's not always again the search for it or the next thing or something I attain. It's here in this moment. What does that look like? And in those kind of tougher questions of, where is it showing up for you? And I was like, well, I guess it's the fact that I left the corporate world, like similar background to yourself, that I wanted the freedom to do what I want when I want. And actually that does mean now that I have that. And that means that I want to go to the gym whatever time of day I want. So if I wake up and feel a bit tired, I'll go later on. I want the freedom to not feel guilty for that, or to feel that somebody's going to judge me because like you just said, somebody's going to judge you because that was what your ideal would be as a rich life, is to have somebody that cooks for you. There isn't a right or wrong. We just set up on these expectations, or I guess even rules sometimes, and guidance of what we should and shouldn't do. And it's where does that exist and where does it come from? And if people don't explore that and understand, as you said there, as a grounding starting point, this is where I always say mindset is always aligned with strategy as well. It's just, you'll always come back to it at some point, even if it's not that you've gone into the dells of understanding it completely. You've got the awareness to know what it looks like and where it's showing up.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that can also come down to, and especially for women, our perceptions on money as well, because it may be a lot of what we want. I find with a lot of the women I speak to, there's guilt that comes with it, because, there's guilt by saying, I want a nice car, or I want this and that and the other. Now, to me personally, I'm not that fussed by cars. So, I want one of them, and I want to make sure that it gets me where I get to. But if your goal, or one of my clients' goals is, they want a Lamborghini, then there's a lot of flashing of that around on social media, but it's more masculine. It's mainly men that do that. And so a lot of women feel guilty that they want something like that, or it might be a big house, or it might be to travel all the time, or something. There's a lot of money hang-ups, I think, for women, and a lot of women feel guilty for saying that they want a lot. So you don't get that many, women unapologetically saying, I want millions of pounds. My question would be why? Because again, if someone says to me, I want to make £1 million, help me do that, I can do that. That's fine. But why do you want the million? Because a lot of people see that as the milestone, but they don't actually really know why they want the million. And when they break it down, they actually realize that they don't need $1 million for the life they want to live. And suddenly their goal is much more attainable. They can do it a lot quicker. But if you genuinely do want £1 million, then let's go for it. Don't apologize for it. Don't feel like you're being greedy by asking, for £1 million or 2 million or 10 million. The whole point is you've got to look internally and know that you're being true to yourself, and not sort of living to, like you said, sort of societal norms and, the guilts and all those sorts of different things. And it's just about making sure that you are doing everything that you want for the right reasons.
You mentioned there a lot around, a couple of times, around this idea of guilt as well. And I guess we could call it the guilt trap. What are some of the other themes, or I guess mindset blocks that you encompass with? Is it just female clients you have?
It's mainly female clients. I have sort of worked with men as well. I find, because of what I do, and a lot of what I talk about is sort of like sustainability and conscious business and giving back. I find that works a lot with female traits. We as women, they want to, we want to have a business, and we want to earn a lot of money, and we want to be able to send our kids to school and not have to worry about mortgage payments. But we also want to give back, and we like the idea of helping people. That's not to say that men don't, but it's more, you tend to find that the majority of businesses that women create are along the lines of helping, giving back, sustainability, etc. And so that's generally kind of the route that I've taken. But that's not to say that I couldn't work with men at all. It's that I just attract generally more women.
And that's important, that. What do you find are some of the biggest mindset blocks coming through for a majority of your clients?
Oh, good question. I would definitely say money blocks, 100%. Almost everybody has a money block somewhere. So that's definitely one. Me as well. I've been working on money blocks for a long time. I think the general sort of premise of I can't do it, and that always comes up. I think, especially, it's either I can't do it, or the goals are sort of too small, because they're sort of thinking I can only do this, rather than thinking much bigger. It's definitely a big mindset block as well. I think that us women, we can think bigger, and we need to believe in ourselves more that we can do these things. And I think that a lot of that potentially comes from the fact that, like I say, most of the stuff that's on the internet at the moment, if you go to social media and you look for business advice, it can be very masculine. It's you've got to be up at 5 a.m. and I'm going to outwork you. And, if you're not up at that point, then, you might as well fail. And you kind of think, I can assure you, I don't get up at 5 a.m. And I'm doing fine. So, that's not something that you need to do. But that's one side of the rhetoric. appropriate. If that works for you, then great, get up at 5 a.m. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
But it's sort of making sure as women we don't fall for that if that's not what works for us. And there's a lot of women that don't want to be, you know, getting up at 5 a.m. and, you know, doing the grind and getting 4 hours sleep and all these sorts of different things. And you don't have to. So, you know, that's a bit of a blockage as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, that not one size fits all. And that's, you know, I have group and one-to-one programs, but I like the one-to-one side of things, is really spending time with clients and understanding what is important to them and what, like you just said, that journey piece looks like, and their whole lifestyle around that. Because ultimately it is the small things that create the big differences. And it's I think one of the realizations I've had recently, I've just did a big business retreat as well with the mastermind I'm on, which is amazing, but it's just very much about the knowledge that you have isn't common knowledge, and the impact of, again, just slowing down to recognize what you need to do right now, and being really clear with that, and remember to fall in love with what you do. And I know that can sound cliche, but it's cliche for a reason, that we need to give that time to thinking about our why all the time. We always come back to it. Now, I saw Simon Sinek last week, so that's kind of why it resonates quite a lot with me, to start with why. But it is keep coming to that all the time. And we were talking exactly that. One of the other mindset blocks I see women have is, and males, I just spoke with somebody today on it actually, is I'm not enough, or I'm not good enough. And it's exactly the same as what we were talking about with freedom earlier, that was a question that was asked to Stephen Bartlett and Simon last week, actually, at this event I went to. And they said, you know, I've got a great life. This female stood up, I've got a great life. I just moved in with my partner. We're looking to get married. It's amazing. It doesn't feel enough. When will I feel like, what is going to make me feel it's enough? What does that look like? And exactly the same with the freedom part, is that you have got enough right now. It's exploring that, or it's looking at what you think that is, that you've got to get to, whereas actually it's right here, right now. The same as you're successful right now, you're happy right now. It's just exploring that. And I think that's a real risk. And it's one of my biggest fears is not a fear of failure, it's the fear of success. I remember being very I was successful in corporate in terms of getting to where I wanted to with my career there. But I was very unhappy, and therefore I look in my business and think the irony of the self-sabotage you can create on yourself by that being that if I am, you know, this works and it's successful, which I know it can because I believe in myself and I've got people around me who believe in me. But if I get where I want to get it with that and I'm happy, then what? Like that, and then you create self-sabotaging habits, and it all seems crazy, but it's this is exactly what we need to understand, is how we think and why we do what we do, or likewise don't do what we're supposed to do as well. Because I see a lot of that, people saying, oh, I know what I need to do. I'm like, yeah, but you're not doing it. What's the gap? I know what you need to do, you know what you need to do. Yeah, we're having the same conversation 3 months in, and I can be quite a direct communicator, and I've seen that sometimes I have to be very mindful of that for people, because it can be too intense. But there has to be a level of challenge of, come on, like you said, you're going to do it, let's just do it. What is that gap? How are you going to take action?
Well, it's like that famous saying, isn't it? It's knowledge is power, and it's actually no, knowledge is not power until action.
Absolutely.
So yes, 100%. And I think I've fallen into traps like that as well. I'm sure that I've sort of gone, well, I know exactly what I need to do. But then I think, again, it comes back to the consciousness of being able to ask yourself, okay, but why am I not doing it? And then, most people, I think, don't give themselves the courtesy or the time to be able to analyze. But also you need to be, willing to question yourself and willing to admit and that's another thing, I think, when it comes to sort of blockages and boundaries and so forth, and this is just across the board, is if you're going to be successful in anything, then you need to be willing to be critical of yourself. Now, that doesn't mean to say that everything is your fault and you need to because I also know a lot of people that really need to be very kind to themselves, because they're not, and generally people aren't. But when it comes to situations going wrong or something not happening, as human beings, our sort of default reaction is, whoa, it wasn't my fault, or you should have sent me that, or you should have done this. And maybe that's true, But just taking a couple of minutes to sit there and think, but could I have done something to prevent that? Or what was my responsibility and my level of responsibility and role in that situation? Even if it seems to be, it's very easy to blame somebody else and be like, well, I would have got that contract if, they'd sent that email, or if my PA had done this, or whatever it may be. But actually, did you prep your PA? Have you trained them properly enough? Why did they make that mistake? Is that something that you could help them with, so that mistake isn't something that they make in the future, rather than just sort of laying the blame and then going, okay, well, it wasn't my fault. And I think the more that we can do that, the more we're analysing ourselves and we're analysing our own behaviour, and that's how we grow.
Yeah, and that's perspective, right? All starts with perspective and the awareness part. I mean, curious for you, where does the sustainability and the giving come into your work, and where's that come from?
Well, for me, it's come from for years. I remember back at university, I was part of a society called S5EP, which stood for Students in Free Enterprise. And part of what we did, because I studied business at uni, and we used our business skills to basically go into community centres locally, but also projects around the globe, to try and create something that worked sustainably for them. And the goal was to use our skills, teach them, and be able to hand the project back so that they were sustainable in their own rights. So ever since then, I've just loved it. And for me, I have 2 kids now. I want to be able to hand over a planet that is doing well for them. And all I hear is negativity around global warming and around plastics in the ocean, and people not being able to afford basics to live on. And it's 2023 and this shouldn't be this way, and I want to be part of the solution, not the problem. So for me, what I do is I could set up one business and do one thing in one area that would help, and that would be great, and I am working on that at the moment. But with my coaching, working with so many people, it's almost like ultimate leverage. If I can help 1,000 women or people generally over the next few years to do exactly the same across 1,000 different companies, I'm able to cover far more ground. Do you know what I mean? I'm able to help with something in one country, something in another, something that helps environmentally, something that helps socially, and it's just encouraging people to be that bit more aware. Because I think that, business, it's easy to make money in business. There are thousands of ways that you can do that. But people see giving back and having a business that gives back and earning lots of money as 2 separate things. And they see it as, well, I've either got to be charitable or I can make money for myself. And when it comes down to it, realistically, we're going to think of ourselves first. And I don't think that that's actually a problem. I don't think that we should feel, again, guilty or selfish for that. We have one life, and we want to lead it the way that we want to lead it, and we want to do amazing things, and we want to go loads of different places. So for me, I'm trying to just encourage the idea of, yes, make your money and do amazing things, and don't feel guilty for having a nice house, or going on holiday 4 times a year or 10 times a year if that's what you want. But that doesn't mean that you can't do something good at the same time. It's not an either or. And that's kind of what I wanted to get from it. And the sustainability side, and doing good, there are so many different things that you can incorporate within your business. There are businesses, for example, there are cafes that you can go to where they only employ homeless people, and so they train them, and they obviously give them support outside of the business itself, and that cafe has expanded and is now run entirely by people who used to be homeless and are now not. They've now got skills, they've now got confidence back, they've got bank accounts, they've got places to live, all these sorts of different things. The cafe is still run profitably, but the people that you're helping are people that would never have had the opportunity before and weren't on the job market. There are cafes as well that you can go into and you can buy 2 copies but take one away, so you're leaving one available in there. There's a cleaning company up in Nottingham that, again, only employ women that have come from domestic violence, people that have come from prison and aren't really getting many job opportunities. Again, the safeguards are put in there, and they're doing it properly, but the idea is that they're providing employment opportunities for people that maybe wouldn't have had them otherwise.
Sure.
Then you get other companies that are utilizing better supply chains. So Tony Chocolonely, I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's like a quite a famous chocolate bar that you can get,
yes, I have. Yep.
Yeah, you see them all over the place now. It's funny when you start doing these things, you suddenly start seeing this stuff everywhere. And they are trying to shine a light on the slave trade within the chocolate supply chain, which is still a thing. Most people wouldn't even know that that is a thing. So the fact that they're, number one, trying to use the right suppliers, but also, again, they're a profitable business. They're selling chocolate, they're making money, but they're teaching us at the same time about something that is, really important to know about. There's another company, Elvis and Cressy. They make very high end bags and passport holders, lots of sort of like leather goods and amazing things, but they started out in bags, and they make them out of old fire hoses that were put into landfill. So again, you're taking something from landfill rather than trying to create something new. There's lots of stuff against fast fashion, for example, brands that are utilizing clothes that are already there rather than trying to create new ones. So all these companies are incredibly successful, very, very profitable, but they're taking things out of landfill. They're giving people opportunities that they wouldn't. They're shining light on information that, most people don't have. They're doing amazing things. And these are all things that you can utilize in your business if you want to start something. And it really doesn't matter, how much time and energy and effort that you have, because you could go the whole hog and you could go, I want to be a fully sustainable business, and that is my main core mission. Or, you could be a service provider that just offers pro bono hours to a certain extent.
Right, yeah, it's interesting. I've when I was in corporate, I think it's recognizing something. If you're thinking about, well, where do I start with that? What does that look like? I remember wanting to give back in some capacity, and I kept researching for things around mental health and how I do it. And I trained to be a volunteer for Shout Crisis, which is like Samaritans. So I did 18 months with them, which I loved, and I just did 2 hours every Sunday, and an incredible experience. But some of the rationale for that for me was I wasn't very empathetic to people that would take their life. Years ago, I used to think it's really selfish, things like that. I was like, I need to change my mindset on that, because it's not right to see it in that way. I need to have more understanding. And then I realized that in work, I needed a bit more empathy as well as a leader. So I was like, well, the two need to blend very well. And I certainly just learned that about communication, listening skills, and everything. As much as you're giving back, they call it like a helper's high. You get, because I felt at first, I was like, it's really weird. Like, you feel it was such an experience, really helping people at a moment where they were thinking of taking their life. And absolutely, you had the right support around you for that. But you felt good after as well at the end. It's really weird to think, why would I feel that way? But they call it, like I said, the helper's high, in that you've helped somebody at their most vulnerable point, and you kind of you feel bad for kind of getting a kick of that. But it was incredibly experience. And then since then, I did it for 18 months, and then work changed, etc. And I was like, right, I'm gonna do something different now, and I want to give back in different space. So I went the coaching academy where I trained as a qualified coach. I'd done enough time frame being a coach to then mentor with them. So I've mentored them for nearly 2 years now, every Monday, just an hour. And I remember somebody coming at me and saying, oh, how much do you get paid for it? And I was like, I don't, it's free. And I said, what do you mean? And I was like, yeah, I do. It's like pro bono. I said, it's like I help students with their coming on with their qualifications. Like, oh, why would you do that? And I was like, why not? Like, I love the feeling that I give back. I always make it angled towards something that I want to improve on in myself as well, which is my skill set in something, so that I'm learning. And also that I'd never want to get to a point where I hate it as well, or I feel like it's a chore. I absolutely love it. And that's really important. And that sustainable part with the giving. So I was just thinking myself that actually it links me in terms of, one, it helps me be more sustainable in my business, longer term thinking. Two, I'm giving back, which is something, I would say, like Tony Robbins says, the secret to living is giving. And I think that's really important and is a strong value of mine. So they blend and connect very well for me. And I think that then it's like, I know there'll be a point where that will conclude, and I think there'll be something else, or I'm aware that I'm inviting something else into my world as such when I'm at that point of wanting something new. But I think, like you shared, big businesses do it well. And it doesn't have to be that it's a suck or drain of your time. It's like, I just haven't got time for that. Like, again, it's the prioritizing, it's the awareness, it's the slowing down to say, well, what do you want your business to be, and what do you want it to look like? And then going and creating that. It is possible. You've just got to think about business in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be done from day one. And I think you touched on something quite important about about loving it, and you
Yeah.
really do have to, because it's all well and good saying, oh, I'll just pick a cause and I'll help them, but if you're not picking something that truly means something to you, you're going to get to that point of frustration or boredom, or you're not really going to care how much you help it in any shape or form. So it's really important to make sure that the two marry up, and that you love the product that you're creating or the service that you're offering, but you also love what it is you're doing, and how, like, who you're helping, and and all those sorts of different things. And there are just so many ways that you can do it. And it even boils down to your investing. Just even if for anyone listening who might not be at the business stage yet, maybe if you're putting some of your money to good use and you're investing, you can have green investments, and you can have who you're investing with. Yeah, you want to look at the return, sure, but actually you want to look at the company, and you want to look at the policies, and you want to look at are they doing good things, and am I funding something that I agree with or I don't agree with, and doing things like that. There's just so many little ways that we can make little tweaks, and it doesn't have to be this big all-encompassing, like, oh my god, I need to solve world hunger all on my own. It doesn't have to be that way. It can be lots of little things that you start to change, and before you know it, actually you're doing some amazing good.
What's the biggest transformation that somebody gets from going through that experience with yourself?
I'd like to think that I've seen it a few times when clients have realized what impact their business could have.
Yeah.
And that is an amazing moment for me as a coach, as well as for them. And I've seen kind of people have that aha moment when they realize how to make it work, and how to do something so much bigger than they thought that they could do. They just wanted to create a business, and they just wanted some money, and they wanted to make sure that they could pay their bills and so forth, and then suddenly they realize they're doing this amazing thing. And that's another reason I do what I do, is that, like you said, living is giving. By doing something like that, it feels so much bigger than ourselves, and it feels like something that is hugely motivational, and you do get that high that you maybe don't necessarily get from just business on its own. So helping people to understand how they can incorporate that into what they were planning on just being a normal business, and seeing how motivated and sort of enlightened they get by the whole thing, it's really, really lovely to see from my side, for sure.
And I think that, as I was reflecting there actually in the conversation, this is a deeper work side of things. This is a real building a business of being, like you said, sustainable. In it, you're really connecting with your values, what you want your business to be, the fact that your business grows and can change as well, and how it can evolve and transform. And that's not an overnight process, which is exactly like we said at the start, what I think is expectations, or we're conformed to feel through social media. And I'm not here saying it's wrong. I'm saying sometimes maybe wake up to that in, well, what, like we said at the start, again, what does success mean to you? What's a rich life to you? Ask these big questions that you haven't probably asked yourself in depth, which are the ones you need to ask, because these are what's really can truly connect you to a longer term business, opposed to just, I've got to do this now. And if there was anything I could give all of my clients, it would be patience. And I know sometimes I need that myself, but mine's from the idea of, I love to do lots of things. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And it's like, no, slow down, that less is more. But that real, and it's a passion that drives that. So it's a good thing. But people just are very impatient. And then I think that is the fear, is I see them going down, is that, again, they get there and not happy because they've not really mapped it out. Think about what that looks like. So I think you can start to see here how that can connect, and the real power in what we will know. And I know you said, both of us have come from qualifications of, pure coaching as well. And that's a very different experience doing strategy with people, but it's one where it's very fulfilling, because it takes people on a complete transformation and honestly changes their lives. And this is where I get across people. It's like, coaching isn't by the hour, it's not by the session, things like that. It's not like just pay for something and it's done. It changes your life. And this is what you're doing when you're creating a business from, like you said, an idea, but you've got to invest that time, those ideas, the imagination, to where you want that to go. Yeah,
absolutely. And I totally get where you're coming from, because I'm impatient too, and it's things that's easier said than done, isn't it? Because I want it to be this massive company and that all these people have been helped and all these sorts of different things, and it just doesn't happen that way. But I think the word that always comes back around for me, and it's my sort of word that I need to keep reminding myself as well, is consistency. Because I think when people do get impatient with the fact that things aren't progressing as quickly as they might want them to be, they give up. And they give up too quickly and too easily, because it's the same with anything. It's the same with fitness. It's the same with diets, or not that I'm a big fan of diets, but it's the same with all of these things. We want instantaneous results, and that's because we live in a world of instantaneous information, and we get things so quickly nowadays that we're not prepared to wait anymore. But when we don't get things quickly, we give up. And such a shame, and that is definitely a huge plays a huge impact on entrepreneurs and their success. And if you are that person that is able to keep getting up and going to the gym when they don't want to go to the gym, or setting up the company and making those phone calls, and maybe you have to call 1,000 people before somebody says yes. I think the example I love to give is Dyson. I don't know if you've heard.
5,000 times, right?
Exactly. And there will have been, the argument is always, well, what's to stop someone copying my idea? And there was probably thousands of other people that thought of a bagness vacuum, but they all stopped after 50 tests, or 200 tests, or whatever it may be. But Dyson was the one that kept going and going and going.
I remember in corporate, people come and be like, and I've always been mindful of sometimes when people say, I've got a problem, it's like, well, bring me a solution. And that doesn't really help them, because they would have come to you with a problem anyway. Otherwise, they would have come to you a day. But just the idea they come and, I've tried this. It's like, cool, keep going, off you go. Or I'm not enjoying this right now. And I was like, amazing. How long has it been? They're like 2 weeks. It's like, cool. Once it's been 6 months, we'll have that conversation. I said, but go and honestly just keep going, see what it feels, because it will change. Just trust it, and it's not overnight.
It makes it easier to change your mindset as well. Like, if you know full well that it takes 100 no's to get a yes, get a no, it's less painful, because you're like, great, I'm closer to my yes. And I know that that's sort of like a relatively well-known sort of strategy, but actually just fine-tuning these tiny little things that you say to yourself, and that you and the way that you perceive things, can actually make a huge difference. If you're going into things thinking, I hope I get a no today because it'll be closer to my yes, then actually you don't struggle. And I had a client that really struggled with rejection, and it was a whole thing. We delved really deep into it, and it was because of childhood rejection, and issues that she'd had with her mum and so forth growing up. And we worked on that, and that's fine. But it was having a massive impact in her business, to the point where she was going to give up the whole thing, and she was just going to shut up shop. And all because she sort of hadn't necessarily understood childhood trauma and how it was affecting her. And just reframing, that's a big thing. It's just reframing the way that you look at things, to be able to, give you more of a chance of success, really.
Yeah, incredible. Look, a great conversation, and loads aligning there for sure, in terms of our messaging and the importance of why we do what we do. And I think even just proving again that we can do very similar things. And that's the same for lots of people out there. If you're doubting, well, so, it's I hear people say saturated markets and all this, there's loads of people doing it. Yeah, but like, it's your personality, and you brings it in a different way. And this idea of, like we say, collaboration over competition and those things, and bringing ideas together. And I think you can underestimate that your knowledge isn't common knowledge. And we can also underestimate the power in that lots of people don't have positive people around them. They have a lot of negative Nellies, and that impacts. And I have to sometimes pull myself, because I'm the opposite. I've created, when I look back, I think I didn't have that. And that sits with me. It's a great thing that I've done, but I've created a world around me, which is lovely people, like today, like getting on a conversation with somebody that I can have a great conversation with. And we don't massively have a long relationship, but it's, again, you've got similarities and things in common to have a great, rich, conversation. And you can create those relationships, but you've got to get out there and do that, and have the confidence, the courage to try it, but know that they are. And if there's people around you that are negative, holding you back, doubting you, and even if they're your friends and your family, it's often more about them than you.
100%.
And you've got to just face into those, and then know that again, like you said, that can change for sure.
100%. And I have this conversation so often as well. And again, for me, it's just about, if anyone is having this and they do have a family member or a friend that is quite negative about what it is that they're doing, just remember that it is coming from love. At the end of the day, they are trying to stop you from hurting yourself in some way, shape, or form. It might be that, if you're talking about starting a new business, for people that aren't entrepreneurs, or for anybody really, it's a scary thing to do. And so when someone says, are you sure you can do that? Or, is that really going to work? Or hang on a minute, what do you know about business? It sounds horrible, but they're doing it because subconsciously they're thinking, well, I don't want to see you hurt from doing this. But what you need to just be able to do is say, thank you very much, but I'm going to do this on my own. Like, I love my parents, but they don't understand my business. They are self-employed in their own right, and they know their businesses, but they don't understand mine. So if ever I've had a negative comment from them, it's about listening to it and thinking, do I think that they're right? Does that apply? No. Doesn't impact my relationship with my parents. I love them, and I love that they're concerned enough to ask the question. Doesn't mean that I need to take their advice either.
Right. So,
yeah. About making sure that you're taking the advice from the right people, sure. And not taking it personally.
Yeah, very important. Laura, where can people connect with you?
I am on Instagram at i.am.lauraparr. I've got a Facebook community group that is being set up at the minute. So if anyone wants to sort of learn a little bit more about conscious businesses, or how to do that, then the Conscious Business Community, give that one a search. Or I'm on LinkedIn under Laura Parr. So yeah, hit me up on any of those, and I'd be more than glad to start a conversation. I love meeting new people that are interested in this.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening. Are you looking to grow your business and tired of not seeing consistent results? Head to the show notes right now and check out my quiz to discover the one thing holding you back from growing your business with ease. Business should really not be complicated. I'll see you on the next episode.